Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Training Bytes. This is new on this slide. If you have a question, don't go to chat. I want you to go to the Q&A at the top of your screen. If you have any questions, just type them in the Q&A, and at the end, we will answer any questions you have. Good afternoon or good morning. My name is Gina Thomas, and I am the training manager at C&K Systems and your hostess for Training Bytes, a digestible approach to counterpoint training. And co-hosting with me today is Marty Katz. He's a project lead here at C&K Systems, just in case you have some questions that he's better to answer than I am. You've probably noticed when your users are logged into Counterpoint that some users have different toolbars at the top or bottom of their screen. So it's not your imagination. The toolbars can be configured at the user level, or what toolbar they are using, I should say. Also, when you use a customer zoom or an item zoom, you might look at that zoom and say, wow, I wish there was additional information in this section of the zoom. So we'll talk about how to change that today. Also, when you look at buttons in Counterpoint or tabs on a form or messages that pop up, they can be made more meaningful through something called the text dictionary. So today, we're going to talk about toolbars and how they're customized for users, along with some user preferences, and also how they're customized globally for everyone in the company. We'll talk about customizing zooms where we can add or remove information, and then customizing the text dictionary so you can rename tabs or boxes or buttons or messages. These are the three toolbars that are available for each user. So each user can pick which one they want to use. There's the default, which has lots of icons and drop-down menus. There's the simple, which just has icons and they're a little bit larger than the default. And then there's the V7 toolbar. So those of you that were on an older version of Counterpoint before version 8, the V7 toolbar might be a little more familiar to you. Okay, so when it comes to toolbars at the user level, you can go to Setup System User Preferences, and at the bottom right of the screen, you can choose a scheme. And again, your choices are going to be default, simple, or V7. When it comes to globally customizing toolbars, let's say you want to customize a toolbar in an item record or maybe a customer record. If you just right click on the title bar at the top of the screen, you can choose Customize Toolbars. You'll get a pop-up where you'll click on Customize, and then you'll click on the Commands tab. And if you go all the way down to Custom, you can add a calculator to your toolbar. You can add a notepad to your toolbar. You can even add statements for your AR customers. When it comes to zooms, you want to see more or less information, you can go into an item zoom, a customer zoom, user zoom, vendor zoom. At the bottom, go to Options and select Customize. The next screen that pops up, you'll see a lot of tabs across the top. The tabs represent a section of each part of the zoom. And this kind of looks like your column designers. You have available fields and fields to display. So available fields are in alphabetical order. Double click on it, highlight it, click on Add, and then add it to the fields to display. When it comes to changing the names of boxes, tabs, and buttons, so by boxes, I mean, let's start with buttons. Look at the upper right. See where it says Add Adjustment, Add Cash Receipt? Those are buttons. Then if you look kind of a little bit lower, Main, Contacts, AR Info, AR Documents, those are tabs. And then if you look kind of to the lower left, you have a box called Credit Recap. And then to the right of that, you have another box called Orders Layaways and another box called Credit Used. So you can change the names of all of those. In order to change the name of a button, tab, or box, you need to do two things, or you need to know two things. One is you need to know the form class. So that's as simple as right-clicking on the title bar. The second thing you need to know are the labels. Labels as field names, control names. And again, that's as simple as clicking on the right-clicking on the toolbar and selecting labels as field names, control names. And we'll see that live in a minute. So if I want to change the name of a box, I have to browse to set up system configuration, text dictionary. I have to select components from the upper left dropdown. Then over on the right, I'm going to click on the plus sign. And on the text ID, I'm going to type the form class and the label as the field name control name. And then down on the lower half of the screen, I can change the text of that particular box. If you want to change the name of a tab, you go to the same place, set up system configuration text dictionary, click on the plus sign again, put in the text ID, the form class, and notice it's the form class name, period, the word tab, and then the label name that I need. In this case, it's AR documents. Then I can go down to the text and change the text. If I want to change the name of a button, same place, same process, except if you look at the text ID after the form class, it says .btn, meaning I'm changing this button called Add Cash Receipt, and then the text I want to change it to Payment on Account. When you get pop-up messages, like you go to delete an item or a customer or a purchase request or an unposted receiving, you get a pop-up message. So you can make this message a little more in your face. Maybe you want it to say something like, don't delete items. In order to do that, you need to know what the message is called. So when you get the pop-up that says, in this case, delete item, you just right-click on the title bar, go to details, and note what that message is. In this example, it's FW conf delete. Then we go back to the text dictionary, but this time we're not going to go to components. We're going to go to messages, and we're going to find that message in that column on the left. And you have to scroll or down arrow so there's no quick search. Now, if you go over to the right, you'll see the text ID says FW conf delete. And then down at the bottom, you can change the text. Okay, so let's get into the software and take a look. So user preferences. The long way to get to a user preference, again, this is user specific, is to go to Setup, System, and then User Preferences down here. And it just brings up this window. Or you could go to the upper right, right up here, and just click on the drop-down, select User Preferences. Now, depending on your security, you can either just change the preference for yourself or for everybody in the organization. So what I want to point out here on this main tab for my manager person, notice there's a home action at startup. This means when MGR starts Counterpoint, automatically load touchscreen ticket entry or the sign in to touchscreen ticket entry. But maybe the manager is a buyer. So you want the home action to be purchase request, and I'm just typing, it finds it, purchase request enter. So then when manager signs in, the first thing that's going to pop up is a fresh purchase request. But I'm just going to make this ticket entry or touchscreen ticket entry. And these are in alphabetical order. There's a ton here. Touchscreen ticket entry. There we go. So now let me show you how this works. So I'm just going to close out a Counterpoint. I'm going to relaunch it. And so next, the home action will kick in, and there you go, the sign in to ring a sale. I'm going to go back to user preferences. I'm going to find my MGR person and come here to the user interface. Couple things worth noting on the user interface. One is show forms on taskbar so that when you minimize a window, it'll be on your taskbar. Allow multiple form instances. If you were in our last session, Marty pointed out that sometimes this can cause problems when you allow multiple form instances. It allows the user to open the same window multiple times. For example, I open up an inventory adjustment and then I save and minimize it. I go back to inventory adjustments and I open up another adjustment window and then another and another. So that's what this allows you to do. But the gotcha with this is that if you have multiple windows from the same module open, when you go to post, you're probably going to get a message that another user is working on the batch. So by unchecking this, that will stop someone from opening the same window multiple times. Another thing worth noting is the implied decimal points. This plays out at point of sale, especially during like a cash transaction. So I'm going to show you what implied decimal points do. I usually like to leave it unchecked. And again, this is at the user level. So you might have some users that have one experience when they're taking cash and other users who have another experience. So I'm just going to save this and I'm going to log into point of sale. And there we go. I'm just going to go to my payment screen to demonstrate. So here in cash, now I have implied decimals enabled for this sales associate. So when I put a 1 here, the implied decimal is 1 penny, 0.01. So I'm going to turn this off and change that preference so that the decimal is not implied. So I'm going to come here to the user interface and I'm going to uncheck this. It's kind of a weird statement to interpret. Okay, and I'm going to go back to point of sale. I'm going to go back to the payment screen. So with implied decimals unchecked, when I put a number here, it becomes 1.00 or a whole instead of a fraction. I'm going back to user preferences. Back to the user interface. Over on the right, the default font and the default touchscreen font, I think these are worth noting. Default font does not mean the buttons in Counterpoint. I wish it did, but it does not. It means the font on a maintenance form, like an item record, a customer record, user preferences. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to change the font. We'll make it Lucinda, we'll make it italic, and we'll make it size 12. We can even change the color. Maybe I want it to be green. And then I'm going to save. And you get a warning to restart Counterpoint, but you really don't have to. So if I come out of here and I go back in, you can see right away my fonts have changed. Okay, and you can see my font colors have changed. And so here's something you need to be careful about because you might have a user that does need larger fonts within these maintenance forms. If you make the fonts too big, you're going to start having words crash into each other. They're going to get cut off. I'll show you on an item record. Items. So again, changing the font is only changing the font on maintenance forms. Item records, customer records, purchasing, receiving, adjustments. And I'm just going to change that back. I'm going to make it 8 again, but I'll leave it italic. Okay, again, I don't have to restart Counterpoint, but I'll just go back into user preferences fresh. So you can see my font is still in italic, but everything fits on the screen nicely. Now the statement below that is a little misleading. It says default touchscreen font. This does not change the font on your touchscreen buttons. It changes the font on your sign-in and when you tender. So I'm just going to go ahead and change this. And we'll just make it this one. We'll make it bold and we'll make it 18. Okay. And again, oh, oh, again, it'll tell you to restart Counterpoint, but you really don't have to. So now I'm going to sign back into point of sale. First, I need to sign out. So this is where that switch changes the font. And again, be careful. If you make it too big, your words are going to get cut off. So now I'm going to sign in to point of sale, and you're going to see my point of sale screen. The fonts are still the same. They did not change one bit. See, they're all still the same. So now I'm going to go back to the payment screen. And this is what else that setting affects. Okay, let's go back to user preferences. And back to the user interface. The color options. The negative color means if you enter a negative value into a field, it's like you're on an inventory adjustment and you're doing a downward adjustment of -1, then that field is going to turn red, which I kind of like that one for the negative number, but you can choose any color you like. Back to user preferences. The required color. There are certain fields in Counterpoint that are required. So most people use green, some people use blue, but you can change it to any color you like. And again, this is at the user level. So somebody might have required fields in pink and somebody else might have required fields in green. Now the scheme, I'm actually going to switch to a different install for this. Maybe, maybe not. There we go. That's my different install. Okay, so I'm going to go into Gina's user preferences. Okay, now this is the default toolbar right here. So I got drop downs, I have icons. If I come down here and I change it to simple and save, see how my toolbar changes? And that's everywhere. That's, customers, items, user preferences, purchasing, receiving. So you can see that right here. Now, if I change it to V7, this top toolbar is going to disappear. All your controls will be at the bottom. So I'm going to use a drop down. I'm going to choose V7. I'm going to save and see how the toolbar at the top is gone. Everything's down here at the bottom. And again, that's everywhere in Counterpoint. Customers, items, purchasing, receiving, everything is down at the bottom. But I'm going to change my back. I like the default one the best. And then I'm going to save. Oh, so now I have my toolbar back at the top. All right, so that's individual user preferences, allowing multiple windows, changing the value or changing the color of required fields, changing the font on forms, and what toolbar you're going to use. Now I'm going to show you how to customize a toolbar, but this will affect everybody in the organization. So I'm going to go to items here. And I'm just going to find an item. Well, I don't even have to find an item. I'm just going to right click. I'm going to customize toolbars. I'm going to click on customize. I'm going to go to commands and come down here to custom. Now I can put these values at the bottom on the status bar or at the top. By the way, the only reason I see this status bar is this switch here. So if you take away the status bar, then any of your commands are going to have to go to the top. And I'm just going to say, show me a status bar. Okay. All you have to do to bring the calculator to the top or bottom of the toolbar, hold down your left click and drag. Now, if I drag it to a place that Counterpoint's not happy about, see how there's an X right under my arrow? So if I get down here, it turns into a plus sign. So it's happy. Same if I go up to the top. If Counterpoint doesn't like where I'm dropping it, I'll see an X. But when I see the plus sign, then I can go ahead and drop it. I'm just going to drop mine down here. And maybe I want to see Notepad as well. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and close and close. Yes, I do want to save my changes. So now if I want to access a calculator on the fly through an item record, there I go. If I want to create something in Notepad from an item record, there you go. I can create my Notepad. Somebody asked me earlier where these are saved to. It's just like you normally would, save as. You can save it to your desktop or another folder. Now, when it comes to customer records, if you're using AR, I find an AR customer here. And there's one there. Now, if you look down at the bottom of my screen, I don't have a status bar. So if I customize the toolbar, everything's going to be at the top. So I'm just going to right click here, customize toolbar, customize, and I'm going to restore the status bar and then watch what happens down here. So it's kind of hard to see. So I'm just going to close out of here. And I'm going to close and save. I'm going to enlarge this window. This is the status bar. And see, it's all blank. There's nothing on it except this browse button. So now I'm going to customize my toolbar. And because this is an AR customer, I want to be able to view a statement right from this customer's record. And there's two things you can do with that. I'm going to go down to custom. You can make it so that a filter pops up that will automatically filter for the customer that you've selected, or in this case, Bill McMaster. And or you can put statement auto preview, which will actually just preview the statement without pausing at the filter. So I'm just going to close and close and yes. And so now when I click on statement, if I go to customer, this customer is automatically selected. And then I can preview from here. So there's my statement. If I select statement auto preview, you'll see the filter pop up really fast, but then it'll go away and then you'll get the preview. Okay, so that's customizing toolbars. Either, the toolbar the user specifically sees or a global change that you make so we can use calculators, notepads, or view statements. So next, let's talk about zooms. So zooms are everywhere. Item zooms, customer zooms, vendor zooms, user zooms. I like zooms, especially item zooms. Just get a really nice bird's eye view of activity for the item. Now you can access zooms many different ways. You can go into the lookup and click on zoom or press F6. You can go to table view. And to the right of the item number, you'll see a Z that you can click on. Or if you're actually already looking at an item record, you can click on this Z right here to the right of the item number line. And here's what you see. In the blue and white area, general information. In the inventory area, especially if you have more than one store, you can see quantitative information for your other locations. And then you have buttons down at the bottom. Recent sales, the last 20 transactions for this item. Vendor items. Who carries this item? Open POs. Do I have this on order? Monthly history. This is my favorite. Monthly history is where you get that nice bird's eye view of this item's performance, month over month, year over year, location over location. And you can actually change the value from sales to returns, or maybe to quantity sold, maybe how many tickets, not many, the average ticket, and percent returns. You can also export this half of the screen just by right-clicking and export to Microsoft Excel. And it'll go to your Excel spreadsheet right here. How cool is that? It just popped up automatically. You don't even have to have Excel open. Cancel. I do not want to save. Don't save. I have to give it the right command. Now, under each one of these buttons, you'll see links. Well, not each one, but most of them. So you can look at the customer from here by clicking on this link. Who bought this item on this transaction? Oh, it was Brian Schmidt. You can look at the item, but really, frankly, you're already looking at the item. Or you can look at the actual receipt by clicking on the document link. So here's the actual receipt. You can see what other items were on the ticket, how it was paid for. So that's true with vendor items. There's a link to vendors. There's a link to purchase orders. Now, this is really important, especially if you have more than one store. If you're ever in an item zoom and that transfer button is lit up, it means this: a transfer out was created and posted, but the corresponding transfer in has not yet been processed. So why I bring this up is that I've noticed in most multi-store situations, the store that's sending the transfer, they do a good job. They create the transfer, they post it, and they move on. But the receiving store sometimes drops the ball. The receiving store gets the merchandise, they're very excited. They open the box, they put the merchandise on the floor, but they never do the transfer in. So if you are multi-store, pay attention to transfer buttons that are lit up in a Zoom. Now let's say I want to change this. Maybe I want under recent sales. I can see the price and what it's sold for, but maybe I want to see what it was, before I discounted it. Maybe I want to see the cost. Maybe up here at the top, maybe I want to see price and cost up there. Maybe I want to add a different quantitative value in the inventory box. So I'm going to go to Options, and I'm going to go to Customize. So the Item tab represents the blue and white area. Let's get that out of the way. The Inventory tab represents this box called Inventory. And then there's a tab for each one of these buttons: vendor items, open POs, substitutes, serial numbers, etc. So I'm going to change the inventory tab. I'm going to change this blue and white information. Maybe I want to see the last cost. Maybe I want to see the last average cost. By the way, in order to move the available fields over to fields to display, you can either double click on it or highlight it and click on Add. Now let's say I want to add price 1. I could scroll through here because it's in alphabetical order, or I could click on an item or a field and just type a P on my keyboard. And it brought me down to price 1. But I actually want to put that on my recent sales. This is SQL. Don't let it intimidate you. You can probably figure out what it all means. So, let's say I want to see any discounts associated with that sale. So this is price 1 discount. And then what I want is I want price 1 on here as well. Price 1. And then I want to change the order. So I'm going to put price 1 This is what it rang up as. Price is what I actually sold it for. And then of course the discount. Now you can move these fields with the up down buttons here, or you can drag them. Hold down your left click and drag them around. I like the buttons a little bit better, give you a little more control. So now the screen has to refresh. I go back into recent sales. And now you can see what this rang up as, any discounts associated with the sale of this item, and what you sold at the final selling price. If you like the changes you make to a Zoom and you want to save them, you go to Options, Save As. If there's something in the drop down, like I have the one called Gina, this is my default one. Or you want to just say, it's going to be the default for everybody. And by the way, if you do save it as the default, it's the default for everybody. So now when I click OK, yes, we know. Now it's mad at me because I have two in here that have a default. So now I shall say default and save as default. And OK. Nah, it doesn't like my name. Give it a different name. I'll call it Zoom. And there we go. So now when I go to Options and Load, there is my saved Zoom. Okay. So that's item Zooms. Let's look at a customer Zoom because these are super handy. So I'm going to go to Customers. And again, you can access the Zoom many different ways. You can go and do a lookup, click on the Zoom button or press F6. You can go to Table View. And there will be a Z to the right of the customer number. Or if you're looking at an existing customer, you can click right on the Z right here, right to the right of the customer number line. Okay, again, we have that blue and white area. We have buttons, recent sales, monthly history. Current documents are unposted sales or orders that are still waiting to be released. I can see multiple ship to addresses, closed layaways, special purchases. These are purchasing documents that were generated from a report analyzing customer orders placed with you. Order, back order, special order. Closed orders, these are orders that are fully processed and released. Ticket history. Now, recent sales just shows you the last 20 items that were purchased. Ticket history will show you all of the customer's purchasing history. And just like in item zooms, you have links to the item number, links to the document. In current documents, you have links to the document. In ticket history, same thing, you have links to the document itself. Sometimes I get asked about reprinting tickets from a previous day's business because, your reprint ticket button in point of sale is only good for today. So if you're tracking customer information, you can actually go into the Zoom, find the ticket, and then print it from here. And it can be from any day in the past. And then you get this. You can have the letter size, or if you need the little 40 column ones, you can do the TMT 88. So that's all well and fine, this ticket history, but something I like a little bit better, I think it's a little friendlier. Up here, view ticket history. This will also show you the customer's purchasing history. Now, usually when I come into view ticket history, I'll filter for some type of date range because I don't want to see everything purchased from the dawn of time. And then I'll come to table view. And so this is pretty nice. The top half of the screen is giving you a summary. Bottom half of the screen is giving you item detail. And both halves of the screen can be manipulated with your column designer. So if I right click on the top half, I go to column designer. Maybe I want to see a ticket date. So I'm just going to type a T here, Scroll down a little bit, double click on ticket date. And now here's my ticket date. I can drag the column by holding my left click down. Maybe I want it over here. It's kind of, when you're moving these columns, you don't see them move. It's a little disconcerting, but they really are moving. You actually see them move when you let go of your left click. If I want to customize the bottom half, I'm just going to right click, go to column designer, and maybe I want unit cost here. Okay. And again, I can drag around the column. Remember, any customizing is temporary unless you save it. Now, in this case, you'd have to save the top half and the bottom half. So if I right click, save as, typically I would save it as default. It becomes the default for everyone in the organization. The same with the bottom half of the screen. It becomes the default for everyone in the organization. But when it comes to looking at the zoom, I would really like to see the customer's address at the top. And maybe I want to see city and state. So I'm going to go to options, customize. Okay, remember there's a tab that represents each part of the zoom. So this customer tab is the blue and white area. So I renamed my address 1 to street address, because address 1 just wasn't that friendly. So again, I'm just going to double click or highlight and click on add. And then I want to see city. So I'm just going to type a C. There's city, double click. And then I want to see state. Just going to scroll a little bit after typing my S. And there's state. And I want to change a position. So I want the street address under the name, the city under the street address, and the state under that. And then OK. And there we go. Street, city, state. And again, options save as. Now in recent sales, this price was actually what I sold this product for. But what did it ring up as? And what's the last cost? Were there any discounts? So I can go to options, customize. And I'm going to go to recent sales. And I'm going to find price 1. That way I know what it rang up as. There it is. Double click. And I'm just going to put that above price. And maybe I want to know unit cost. So I'm going to move that up or down and click OK. Okay, it refreshed. And now I can see it rang up at this price. It actually sold for this price. And here's how much it cost to make that sale. So those are item and customer zooms and customizing. Next, I'm going to talk about the text dictionary and changing, let's say, the description of a tab or the name of a box or the messages. Okay, so I'm going to, yes.
Before we move on to the next subject, can you go back to an item or a customer record?
I sure can.
And yeah, just now do a lookup.
Well, too late.
Well, do a lookup anyway.
I
Not
am.
there. On the toolbar. I'm gonna be very picky.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you see over there, there's a zoom
Yes.
button up there. You're on this is a customer, you have a customer zoom next to the customer number. You got a zoom on the customer lookup. They are not the same.
Oh, good to know, right?
They are
Yeah,
not the
look at
same.
that. You are
So
right.
here you go. So if you zoom from one spot and it's not showing what you expect to see, and boy, that's a funky one.
Yeah, isn't it?
If you're not seeing what you expect to see because you just customized the zoom, it's not going to bring up the exact same customizations that you made.
That is good to know. So yeah, so I was here in a lookup. I got that zoom. Here
Mm-hmm.
on the actual customer record,
You've
I
got
go into a
another zoom.
zoom. There's another zoom.
So
What
just
about
to
it?
be aware,
Yeah, and same thing at point of sale.
same place, anytime that you have a slightly different, so the customer lookup at point of sale should be the same zoom as a customer lookup here from the toolbar.
Okay,
But
this one here.
I don't guarantee
It's
it. All right. So
all right.
just so if you've customized your Zoom and then you show it to somebody and they say, "Hey, what's wrong here?" That's probably it. Okay. I'll go back to my quietness now.
Okay, Marty, thanks a bunch. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so now let's talk about the text dictionary. So I'm going to go to inventory items and see, here's this description tab. Okay, and maybe I wanted to say additional information instead of description. So remember, there's two things I need to do. I need to know the form class and I need to know the label name. So, little tip, if you come up to the Counterpoint icon and you right click, come to the form class and just left click. That buffers it to your mouse. So you can use copy paste ultimately. So actually when you go do this and left click on it, it's like copy. So now I copied the form class. Now I need to know what this is called in SQL world. So I'm just going to right click, and you don't have to be over here when you right click this time. You can be anywhere as long as you're on the title bar. So I'm going to go to labels as field names, control names, and it's called tab description categories. Spelling is really important here. It has to be exactly the way you see it, not the uppercase, lowercase, but the spelling. So now I'm going to change it to additional information. So I'm going to go to Setup, System, Configuration, Text Dictionary. I default to Messages. I'm going to click on Components. I'm going to click on the plus sign. And then I'm just going to do Control V. Control V is in victory. There's the form class. Then I'm going to type dot tab description categories. Now this defaults to all uppercase. So it doesn't matter, it's just going to default that way. Then I'm going to come down to the text. I'm going to say additional description. And you can make it bold if you like. You can make it italic. You can strike it out. There's where the results look. Or you can underline it. Okay. And then I'm just going to save by clicking on this little check mark. Or you could refresh here. Either one is fine. So now when I go back to inventory items, now my tab says additional description. Okay, so for those of you that use alternate units, we usually sell it by the each, but sometimes we sell it by the 6-pack. Go away reminder. I'm going to come to the units tab. So this box is called Alt-1. Maybe I wanted to say alternate unit. Maybe I wanted to say 6-pack because that's what I use my alternate ones for. So again, I need the form class, right click, left click copies. Then I need to go to the title bar again, labels as field names, control names. And this one is called GBXALT. I'm going to exit. I'm going to go back to my text dictionary. I'm going to use this drop down, select components, new, control V as in victory, dot GBXALT. Again, it defaults to uppercase. Down here, alternate unit. And again, bold, italic, underline if you like. I don't need to underline. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and save. And now when I go back to the item record, oh, wrong place. and I come to units, now my box has a different name. Okay, now what about buttons? So for those of you that use account management, probably because you have AR, you can use it even if you don't have AR. So I have add adjustment and add cash receipt here. And for add cash receipt for that button, I wanted to say payment on account because I can take payments through that cash receipt, payments on account. So again, I need the form class, right click, left click. Then I need the label name, right click, labels as field names, button, add cash receipt. And again, spelling is really important. So I'm going to go back to the text dictionary. I'm going to use my drop down for components, plus sign, Control V, dot button, add cash receipt. Then down here, payment on account. Okay, and then I'm going to save. And now let's go look at the customer record. And the nice thing is you don't have to restart Counterpoint for all of this. The change will take effect immediately. Let's go back to account management. So you can see here I got a little too wordy. So there is kind of a limitation before things start falling off the buttons. So I'm just going to go back to the text dictionary and fix that. I'm going to shorten up the word payment. I'm going to go back to components. And here it is right here. See how they're different. And I'm just going to say, you know what? Instead of payment, I'm just going to call it pay on account and then save. All right, so let's go back to account management. Customers, account management, pay on account, and it fits nicely on the button. Now, what about pop-up messages? So if I go to inventory or customers or purchasing request, a saved one or a saved receiving, and I got to delete it, I'm going to get a message. Now, in the case of an item, if I go to delete it, by the way, we don't like you deleting items, just so you know. It just says delete item, question mark. But maybe I want it to be something like, don't delete. Gina told me not to delete items because it orphans the history. So in order to change that message, I have to right click on the pop-up message itself, go to details, and it's FW conf delete. So I'm going to exit from here and go back to my text dictionary. Okay, so now I'm here at messages. And there's not like a quick search here like there is everywhere else in Counterpoint. You literally have to arrow or scroll down to the message. Fortunately, they're in alphabetical order. So I'm just going to find FW conf delete. Maybe I'll scroll just a little bit more. There we go. FW, I need to go up a little bit. There it is. Now, let's say you get to this screen and this text box is grayed out. Like if I come here, maybe another one. If it's grayed out, just click on create and that'll ungray it. But I'm going to go back to fconf delete. Now, if you look at the bottom half where it says text, notice there's a % sign and an A. This is kind of like an insert value. In other words, display the name of the form you're on after the word delete. So I'm just going to say here, don't delete. And then I'm just going to go ahead and exit and I'll be prompted to save. Now watch what happens when I go to an item record. I'm going to find an item. I'm going to click here. So this is that %A playing in. I'm on an item record, so the message is don't delete item, question mark. Don't delete item. Okay. Now if I go to a purchasing document, And I'm just going to go ahead and delete this purchasing document. See how it inserts the form name here? So don't backspace over that %A or delete it. Okay, so that's the text dictionary and renaming tabs and boxes and buttons and messages. So let's go back here. And so hopefully you learned how to modify your toolbars, at the user level and globally, and a couple of things about user preferences that are good to know, how to customize your zooms, and using the text dictionary to customize verbiage. So Friday, when you get the link to the video recording, you'll also have a survey. It's a very quick survey to take. So there's only like 2 questions. You can remain anonymous. You can also give me topic suggestions for upcoming webinars. So that'll be with your recording on Friday. Or if you want to go straight out to our website and fill out the survey, www.cksystem.com/Training Bytes survey. If you want customized training tailored to your business, using your data, which makes more sense than my golf store, give me a call, main number extension 3, or email training@cksystem.com. Next month, March the 1st, fun topic, we're going to talk about menu codes. Menu codes are like groups of people, and you can actually modify what those groups can see and do through a menu code, limit or expand their permissions. You can create custom buttons for your Counterpoint menu. And I'm not talking touchscreen, I'm talking about custom buttons. Like, for example, you run around 50 different places to run 50 different reports. Well, we can create a custom button that contains all 50 of those reports, so you're only going to one button. And we can also link a Counterpoint button to an external program like Excel. So make sure you sign up, reserve your spot, and I'll see you on March the 1st. And with that, do we have any questions? Okay, so I'm going to check the Q&A. I do not see anything here except from the last session. Does anyone have a question? Okay, well, as usual, thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you very much for your time. And I hope to see you on March the 1st for menu codes. Have a great day, everyone.